Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind. Remember, we're a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey by bringing amazing guests with amazing stories and experts in their field. So if you haven't already, make sure you follow us on your podcast provider and you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel if you're watching us. So today we are speaking to Nat. How you doing, Nat? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. All good.
Good, excellent. So I'm going to get Nat to introduce herself in a second, but I feel I've had the privilege of being part of Nat's journey, and I'm going to get her to introduce herself. You'll know straight away why I wanted her on. She's got quite a unique experience and position that she holds as well. So before we hit the 20-minute timer, as we hit the 20-minute timer, Nat, if you could just introduce yourself for the people who don't know who you are. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm Natalie Davidson. I have Tourette syndrome and I'm a teacher. And I recently, it's probably 2 years ago this sort of month, did a documentary to help inspire and help people on journeys with disabilities, mental health, anxieties, and inspire people that they can do a little bit more, even though in life they might have been told that they can't. And obviously I've had a journey through teaching and education, and a journey through living with a disability.
Yeah, amazing. And we'll dig into that a little bit, and it'll be great for you to share your story as well. But yeah, I can't believe it's been 2 years, by the way, because you just reminded me about the whole that it's been 18 months of the pandemic and stuff. So yeah, when you said 2 years ago, it surprised me. But we're going to link that documentary in here for people to go and have a look at as well, because it's phenomenal. And like I say, with a little bit of sport in there and a little bit of education, we're going to have a chat about that. So we're Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Minds? There's no right or wrong answers here. Like what comes to your mind when you hear the word leadership?
Leadership, the word leadership brings up like two separate elements. So positive leadership that I've experienced, and ways that I reflect on my own leadership throughout life and my journey in school and personal journey. But also, if I think about leadership, I can also see such negative parts because of negative experiences of leadership I've had. And leadership for me is, as a personal thing, leadership isn't about being someone that's in charge. Leadership is about showing and demonstrating. And those are the things I think of when I think of leadership.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome. So staying with yourself, we always ask people to reflect and go back. And it's amazing how far back people go. But whether it's on reflection or whether there was a moment in time that was a light bulb and you realized it, when do you think your personal leadership journey started?
You see, as a personal leadership journey, I think from a young age, I played sport to quite a good level during my years, and driving myself to improve on that sport, especially in football that I was playing. When I was younger, football for girls wasn't as well thought of and as well known. So I had to take my own style of leadership to push myself to get involved in sport and to get involved in football, and to go and join in with boys playing football, or to join in somewhere where you weren't necessarily accepted straight away, and to push myself to improve upon those skills and follow a new direction or carve my own sort of path from that early age. So I would say around 10 years old, I started to do that. And I see that as part of the leadership journey, because you're carving your own path at that age and deciding which direction that's going to take you. So for me, it started then. The leadership journey for me has changed massively since being a 10-year-old and the way that I reflect upon my own journey. But I think from that sort of young age, that started, and that helped teach me drive, I guess, or teach myself that drive and that push. I think a lot of my push and drive comes from the sporting background, especially a sporting background that you're not accepted in.
Yeah. And again, I know you were a little bit unsure about coming on the podcast and that kind of like, what have I got to say about leadership? And I know that and it's that I'm so passionate about saying about self-leadership. Leadership starts with you. And And it's that whole thing about leadership is all about you, but it's not about you at all. And it's about others, and how inspiring your story is, and how you're able to share and through your personal leadership journey and where you are now. So could you tell us a little bit about your story, please, and share with the audience, because it captivates me every time, and I loved watching the documentary. Could you? I know we've only got 15 minutes left, but could you share a little bit about your story and why you're so unique and inspiring?
Yeah, so when I was at university studying to become a teacher, there was a massive traumatic event in my life, and that sort of set off my Tourette's. And from that point, my life obviously changed in so many different directions. And the route that my life could go one of two ways, really. I was told that I wouldn't be teaching, shouldn't be teaching. I lost a couple of jobs, not teaching jobs at that point, due to having the Tourette's. And I decided to push on and to fight against the negatives that were telling me that I shouldn't be stood in front of a classroom full of teenagers or children and being a teacher. And that journey's pushed me, and it's pushed me through some really negative and difficult challenges, to the point where I've felt like I needed to give up and look at a new career, look at something else totally different. And luckily for me, there's been that drive within me that's wanted to push past every single hurdle that I've had, not just for my own personal development, but I've met so many people with disabilities, not just Tourette's, that have stopped doing something or have been told to stop doing something or made to feel that they couldn't attempt something because of a disability. And I wanted to be someone that could show them that there might be a more difficult road to that point that they're trying to get to, and the road might be bendier rather than an easy straight road, and there's going to be some big ups and downs, but that end point is possible to reach. And for me, that's what's driven me so much to keep pushing, so that I could show those people and have that impact. And through doing not only my job as teaching and hopefully inspiring all the students that I've taught, but doing it on that bigger scale, and through the documentary and the other TV things that I've done and workshops, and I've helped other people start a new journey for themselves, and reach things that they didn't think that were capable in their life. And I've got to a point now in my life where I'm in a job where I'm happy, and I'm doing the job that I've always set out to do and often been told that I couldn't. So for me, I'm winning on two sort of angles there. Yeah. That I'm beating my own personal battle, but I'm also managing to help others beat their personal battle, which is what I set out to do.
Yeah, amazing. And again, we spoke just before we came on here about what you're currently doing now. And I think that'll be great to sort of share with people what you're currently doing now, because it's got a link. We were talking about my background in adventure training and outward bounds, but it'd be great for you to share what you're doing now and then the impact that's having, like taking people outside. Because when we talk to business owners and leadership and engaging people, sometimes it is take them out of the environment, change the perspective. So can you share a little bit about what we talked about before we came on about what you're currently doing?
Yeah, I think that we judge people directly on an environment that we're expected to go in and teach them in. And as a teacher, you're expected to walk into a classroom and you're expected that the students sit down and they can listen to you, and you will get certain results based upon what you teach them in that classroom. But that's not always the way. And people learn differently, and people need different environments to be able to flourish. And if we keep pushing the same narrative in the same environments, we're only ever going to get the same results. So for me, it's about looking at different environments that we can take students into, we can allow adults to flourish in, and we can push people to try those different environments. And for me at the moment, as part of my job, I'm doing like a leadership course, an Outward Bounds leadership course, where I can take students out on expeditions. And we've done some little mini expeditions, and to see the difference of students that aren't necessarily comfortable in a classroom, and you take them out of that classroom and it changes their behaviour, it changes the outlook, it changes their perception of themselves and what they're capable with. And to watch students think that they aren't capable because they're not academic and they can't deal with being in a classroom, suddenly go out and achieve something outside the classroom, and watch their face light up because they've achieved something and they've realised, actually, I've got a talent here, but it's not a talent that I'm normally going to have an opportunity to show. And to see something switch in the head that, hang on, maybe I'm just not designed to be in that environment. Maybe this is an environment that I could work in or do something in. You watch the switch and you watch them start to see a possibility of a future. And for me, that's the biggest reward that you can get, is not an academic result. It's to see that switch in a student or an adult, that within their own mind, they've seen a possibility of success and a future for themselves.
Yeah, amazing. And again, I think you are at a sharper end of bigger impact, but that's what I saw. And that's one of my passions doing what I do now, because you see the impact it has on people, and it's phenomenal. So this is a big question coming here, and you can go wherever you want with it. We mentioned, obviously, you've got a little bit of sports background, and I think you were underplaying. You got to a really good level of sport. And obviously you've had the education side. Can I just ask a quick question to sort of like side section of that? You are the only teacher in the UK, aren't you, with Tourette's? Is that correct?
Yeah, with Tourette Coprolalia. The only teacher with actively teaching with Coprolalia across, as far as we know, like the world.
Oh, fantastic.
With actively teaching with Coprolalia, which is a swearing part of Tourette's. Yeah.
Awesome. I knew you were a big thing. So no, this question then. So I know it'd be good. You said about positive and negative experiences of leadership. Talk to me a little bit about some of the similarities you've seen between sport and education in both the positive and negative. So you can go wherever you want with that.
So positive sport. I'm not going to separate them. Positive leadership that I've seen has been leaders, and I've seen a few of these both in sport and in education. And it's the leader that doesn't stand at the front and address themselves as the leader that have always been the best leaders. And to break that down a little bit more, it's someone that's actively involved in every step of change or direction that they expect the team to go in, and is part of the team. They don't have a team, they're in that team, and they're involved in the communication, they're involved in the mistakes, they're involved in the positives, they're involved in building us up, and we move in that direction as one. And the negative experience has always been that there's a team, and then there's often another little team that's a little bit closer to the person that thinks that they're the leader, and messages are passed between and filter down. And I think that for me, one of the biggest things in leadership is that communication as a group. And whenever there's change, there needs to be an opportunity to discuss the change. And even if, and this has been huge for me in anything, and I think because of the way I work with not coping well with change as well, I understand it a little bit more from that side, that if you are involved in voting, not necessarily voting, but you're involved in the decision-making process, even if a decision has already been made on where we're going to go, but they ask your opinion on it, and it still goes in the direction that they wanted it to, because there was no choice of that, but you feel like you've been part of that decision-making process, whether it went the way that you wanted it to go or not, you felt part of that. so different to if a decision is given to you and told this is what's happening. And so for me, as any type of leadership role that I have or I'm involved in, I try and make it a discussion on options and where we could possibly go, and take that into account. And at every step, say what would be the next step, and involve every person in that team, not just the second in charge or the third in charge, but right down to, you know, the caretaking facility staff that you have in sport, that you have in education, that they're all involved in all those actions. And the best leadership I've seen is when all of that's being done as one whole, from the bottom of the tree, the pyramid, the leadership tree, to the top, and that you work as one group. I find it very difficult to take direction when it's just spoken direction and instructional direction, or instructional leadership. I like to be involved in that. So for me as a leader, that's the most important thing that I can be, and that I inspire to be whenever I do anything.
Yeah, amazing. And just you talking through that, I can imagine that's now how you implement and deliver right now. And for the children that you're dealing with, I can imagine that is quite empowering for them to be part of the decision and feel like they're part of your, because you can imagine in education sometimes there can be some directional focus on, this is what you're going to learn, this is what we're going to do. Awesome. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. Can you just share with us, and I can imagine there's several, have you got like an inspirational impacts that you would pick out as something that you've had the privilege of being part of? So you must have had a lot of stories of inspiration from the documentary, or your time in education with the amount of pupils that you've inspired. Is there any one that stands out?
Oh, one. Through teaching, I still have a lot of ex-students contact me now and tell me that the difference that I made to them and the strength or courage that I've given to them. I think more recently, when the documentary came out, I received a lot of letters and photos and messages from parents, carers, teachers, and some of those included photos of their child back in their school uniform going to school, and they've not gone to school because of the journey that they'd had fighting acceptance and disabilities, and people showing me application forms that they'd filled out for jobs or for universities and colleges. And those things it was hard to do a documentary. It was hard to put my life out there. And I still find it hard that it's out there and it's getting shown. But when I received those things, I kind of put the personal feelings of the documentary behind me, because the impact that it has outweighs the not negative, but the anxiety that putting my life out there causes. And so to see someone start a new job, apply for a job, go back to school, or just go to the shops and felt that they could do that, that has been the biggest impact for me.
Excellent. Good. I like that. So our audience are obviously interested in leadership, wanting to level up their leadership. What advice would you give to somebody to wanting to help sort of drive themselves forward and sort of go for that leadership role, sort of have that self-belief that they can maybe go on that lifelong learning journey and level up?
I think that you shouldn't doubt your own experience, that you have to get to the point where you feel that you can apply for a leadership position. And I think before you step into a leadership position is to reflect back on the whole journey that's led you to that point, and to almost break down into what leaders you've been led by during that journey and pick out what you enjoyed about being under that person and what the positives were, and what you felt frustrated by that leader, and then to use that to help build the focus for you moving forward. Because the only way that you can be a leader, in fact, I believe that everything that you do moving forward is based on experience, and to reflect on the experiences that you've had, negative and positive, and build that into your own little package to make yourself the best leader that you could be is what's going to make you successful in that leadership journey. You've got to look at what you've enjoyed and what you found difficult or what you were frustrated by, and work a way around making sure that you do those positives and you don't do, or you change those negatives, and build that into the package of you being a leader.
Yeah. Do you know what? I love that. It's almost like people have already, without even knowing it, got a blueprint. And then, that's the experience and the exposure they've had to people, good and bad. But then it's about them putting your stamp on it. And I always say about leadership, it's about everybody's got unique fingerprints. We've all got unique leadership as well. But it's made up by lots of experiences. So Nat, thank you so much. That is our time over. 20 minutes flies by, doesn't it?
It goes quick.
So guys, if you enjoyed that, make sure you follow us on your podcast provider. Make sure you share it forward. I'd love to know your thoughts and takeaways from each of the episodes. And if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe. Every week, every Wednesday at 6 a.m. we have a fantastic guest coming your way. So Nat, thank you so much again for your time.
No, all good, thank you.
Enjoy next week in the mountains doing your Mountain Leader Award. I look forward to hearing about it. And guys, if you want to connect with Nat, or you want to find out about the documentary, I'm going to put all the links in the comments below. Thank you so much for this week, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.